While flying into the Salt Lake Valley after a recent business trip, I noticed a large trail, like a giant ribbon, laid across the mountainside. When I got home, I got on Google Maps and figured out what that trail was. I learned that trail led to Squaw Peak. This is our story of exploring the Squaw Peak Trail and learning of the history. We traveled this trail from south to north and made it a point-to-point trip. After leaving the pavement, we found the trail to be narrow at some points and somewhat rocky, but I thought a regular truck could make this trip. This was our first time on this trail, and we found that the section of trail north of the Squaw Peak overlook area was much smoother and could be traversed in any simple vehicle. Any car could easily make this trek. The trail to the south of the Squaw Peak overlook was very rocky and was rutted out. There were some sections that were quite bumpy and not so enjoyable. Although my initial impressions were that a simple truck could make this trek, I feel that would only be the case in the very best of conditions. Initially we found that the trail had been pretty smooth, not too many rocks, and as I had said before, I would have brought a traditional style pickup here. But what we've found since are a bunch of mud holes that are eroding the trail, and it's made for quite a bumpy ride. So I would definitely avoid this place with any water. Just stay away if you're not in a very capable vehicle. Now if you bring up just your regular truck with maybe some mud terrain tires, I'd still be cautious. It's going to be slow going to have a comfortable ride. I definitely recommend airing down. We've got the tire pressure actually pretty low, and it's made for a comfortable ride for the most part, but we do have these big mud puddles that just aren't helping things out. The Salt Lake Valley was settled by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As they fled persecution in the United States and came into the Salt Lake Valley, which at the time was a Mexican territory known as Alta California. When the church members first entered the Salt Lake Valley in 1847, they chose to settle in the Salt Lake area rather than the more favorable lands around Utah Lake and the Provo River. They did this to avoid any conflict with the local native tribes. However, in the spring of 1849, white settlers finally could not help themselves, and they began to establish homes, farms, and schools in the Provo area. The influx of families in the land posed an immediate threat to the natives. They feared that local fish, game, and farmland would not be enough to sustain both parties. The Ute Indians justified stealing some of the settlers' crops and cattle in order to compensate for the lost resources. Both parties felt taken advantage of, and in April of 1850, war finally broke out. Militiamen sent by Brigham Young to protect the settlement found themselves in a shootout with a Ute war party, which was led by feared warrior Chief Old Elk. In an incident which is now referred to as the Battle of Provo River, the outmatched Ute warriors retreated, taking their wives and children up the steep trails of Rock Canyon. Some consider it to be folklore, but legend has it that during the haste of the retreat, the wife of Chief Old Elk fell from the rocky cliffs of the canyon. Locals from then on referred to the mountain as Squaw Peak. This is a paved overlook area. It overlooks Provo City. It's called Squaw Peak Overlook, and I'll throw a GPS point in it down below here. But it is paved to this point, so that's why we're putting air back in the tires. And as our journey continues back to our home, it's all going to be paved roads from here. But if you get a chance, come check out Squaw Peak. Beautiful place. And even if you've got a regular car, you can just come and see the overlook. It's well worth the trip.
So I found a few cool things down over there in that water. Looks like it's a Tesla logo, but a bit more bendy. And there's a big mountain over there, and like a little flat surface. And they both have little like spear points out of them. So I'd call them Mom or Dad one and Baby Spear. So Mom or Dad Spear and little Baby Spear. There's a tiny island out there, which I have no idea what it is, and it looks very cool and makes no sense to me.
Okay, so I showed you under the passenger seat where the ARB twin air compressor is that we use. And normally I don't show you us filling up the air in the tires, but it is obviously a necessary part of these little journeys as we take air out either for better traction or for a better ride. We do have to air up afterwards. Now, not everybody has an onboard air compressor because of the frequency that we take air out and put air in. We have installed the onboard air compressor, but you can also get air tanks that aren't as expensive. This is free when I use it, where the air tank costs to have filled up. Usually at welding places can do it fairly cheaply, but that's a part of our adventure. As always, get out and enjoy the land of the free.